If you've ever been to one of the Disney theme parks here in the United States, and if you're old enough like me, you will remember a ride called Mr. Toad's Wild Ride. And it seems appropriate to describe today's episode with the name of that ride. First, I think you're going to find this to be a genuinely wild ride. Second, this was one of the rides at Disney World that was classified as a dark ride. Dark enough that it wasn't intended for young children, and the ride ended. It was tongue-in-cheek, but the ride ended in hell. And finally, the motto for the ride, posted above the entrance, was Semper Absurda, Latin for always absurd, which, if you ask me, is the perfect motto for any time we enter into the realm of Trump and his minions. So stick around for today's episode. TheoBros, be afraid. Be very afraid.
Welcome to the Sky Pilot podcast that explores questions of faith, spirituality, and religion. I'm Dan Matthews, and I don't have all the answers, but I do enjoy the questions. Welcome to the podcast where every question is an invitation into a spiritual quest, and you're invited along for the journey.
Hi, I'm Dan. This is Quark, and welcome to Sky Pilot Faith Quest podcast, the video version. 6 months ago, I did an episode on the NAR, the New Apostolic Reformation, and it's a group of strongly opinionated and driven conservative Christians whose movement arose out of the Pentecostal and evangelical wing of kind of Christian belief in the United States. I did an episode on them because they have had a surprising level of influence on Trump and his thinking and the direction of some of his policies. Today, there's a new group appearing on the field of presidential influence and on the religious political radar. Now, I'm not saying that their ideas are entirely new or even that all of their names are new. Some of them you're going to recognize, but there certainly are some new players and trends that are developing. And this group that I'm talking about is known as the TheoBros, as in theological brothers. Now, let me say something about that name to begin with. The best I can tell is that it was given to them by an outsider who was kind of tracking them, following them. But after it caught on, within the group, the people who are designated as TheoBros adopted the name and ran with it. The TheoBros are a group of white conservative Calvinist theology-based men who are active on social media, particularly on X being the social media platform that was formerly known as Twitter. They are known for their strong theological stances and often engage in arguing against the theology of others on X, particularly the theology or theological opinions of women. Matter of fact, a number of them have not been shy about voicing their desire to take the ability to vote away from women in the United States. Their mission is to uphold what they believe to be the created order, which places, well, men at the top. They also clearly align themselves and often openly call themselves Christian nationalists. Look, I want to just take time out here. I want to be clear about something before we even get started. You can't be a Christian nationalist. You can call yourself that. There are plenty of people who do. But if you're a nationalist, then you aren't a Christian. To call yourself a follower of Christ, to call yourself a Christian is a pretty radical, no, it's just an outright radical thing. It means that you have given your life over to following Jesus Christ. No other banner, no other flag, no other set of priorities will be allowed to compete with your allegiance to Christ. And that is what it means to be a Christian. Now, one such member of this group, the TheoBros, is a guy named Augustus Invictus. Yep, that's his real name. Now, he isn't the main force behind this group, but he is fairly typical, so he's worth talking about. And he was invited to a luncheon at Mar-a-Lago not long ago, so he obviously has some realm of influence within the Trump world. First, a little background on him. He was a student at the University of California, Berkeley, where he started the first chapter at that university of a group called America First Student, which itself was created by Jaden McNeil. McNeil is a white nationalist who is associated with the organization called Groyper, and the ideological leader of Groyper is Nick Fuentes.
I'm sorry, who is Fuentes?
Oh, he's a very special guy. He's a Holocaust-denying, white nationalist espousing anti-Semitic, return to segregation supporting, homophobic, authoritarianism admiring, against women voting, kind of religious political nut who has a lot of people who listen to him.
I feel like I've heard of him before.
Oh, you have. Trump had dinner with him at Mar-a-Lago, and when people found out about who he was and what he believed, what Fuente stands for, it blew up in the press. Trump announced that he had no idea what the guy believed and that he was invited by someone else. You know, Trump can't be responsible for keeping track over everyone he eats dinner with.
Okay, that's fair. How many people were in attendance?
Excluding Trump?
Yes.
2.
Oh.
Imagine any political figure agreeing to an intimate dinner without knowing who someone was or what they believed. Trust me, if someone wanted to bring me with them to have dinner with Trump, and I'm a nobody and my opinions are not nearly as well known as those of Fuentes, I'm pretty sure, meaning absolutely certain, I would not be allowed to come because someone would check me out and they'd go, yeah, this guy is not one of your supporters. Anyway, Fuentes has a lot of people who listen to him, not the least of whom is Mr. Dorico. Now, back to his story. Dorico dropped out of school and got himself a fellowship granted by Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is the founder and was CEO of PayPal. He's currently projected to be worth $15 billion. It's worth noting that between Thiel and Elon Musk, there's some pretty deep pockets behind some of the most disturbing ideals bubbling up within the new administration. Anyway, Thiel gave Dorico a fellowship to fund his startup company called Rainmaker, and Rainmaker is exactly what it sounds like. It's a company that seeks to alleviate drought in the United States through some form of cloud seeding technology. Okay, I remember watching something about cloud seeding many, 50 years ago on TV. So let me just say I did a little research on this. Cloud seeding hasn't changed much since, well, even the 1940s. Spray particulate into clouds in hopes that the moisture in said clouds forms around those particles and causes more rain to fall than would have fallen without the particulate. The problem being, cloud seeding is impossible to test if it is working. Spray the clouds, get rain, claim success, even though you have no way of proving that if the amount of rain that fell is nothing more that would have fallen without the cloud seeding. So Dorico has picked for himself the perfect industry to claim results that no one can verify his claimed results. Dorico told his followers on social media, "One of our Lord's first commandments was to subdue the earth and tend to it. He desires that mankind control the weather for the sake of building the kingdom of God on earth." 2 important things to notice in this quote. First, let me say that if you ever run into a Jew or a Christian who likes to focus on the word subdue found in the creation story in Genesis, you should run, or better yet, struggle to resist whatever they believe with all of your ability. Second, you will notice that his quote uses the word mankind. He doesn't mean humanity, he means men. God has placed men, white men, on this earth to rule, to dominate, subdue, as you're going to see more of that in a moment. So Dorico is part of a group of California-based tech entrepreneurs who are being drawn to church, conservative, white, nationalist church, and understand themselves to be called to remake America in their image. Remember the word subdue? They see that as the role of man. And when I say man, let me be really specific. They mean white men. It is his role, the white male's role, to subdue creation, women, Jews, blacks, gays, well, anyone who isn't an American conservative white heterosexual male, they need to subdue. Amongst other things, members of this group have openly espoused that they believe that the Constitution has outlived its usefulness. It is now time to replace it with a new standard, which is biblical law, or actually biblical law based on the 10 Commandments. Let me jump in here with a quick interjection. I want to say that because we are talking about the 10 Commandments and law based on the 10 Commandments, I got interested as I was initially writing this video, this podcast, in the fact that they have tied themselves to Donald Trump, who, well, let's just say, his relationship with the 10 Commandments is interesting. So as a precursor to this video, I did another video earlier called Donald Trump versus the 10 Commandments. which I just go through and list his relationship with each one of them. So feel free to check that out. I don't do that here because I did it there, and I'm also really proud of the artwork that's the thumbnail for that particular video. So feel free to check it out. Amongst other things, members of this group have openly espoused that they believe the Constitution has outlived its usefulness. It's now time to replace it with a new standard, which is biblical law, but biblical law based on the Ten Commandments. But make no mistake, if they were to get their way, their version of biblical law would not stop at the Ten Commandments. They want to strip women of the right to vote. By the way, in case you haven't checked, that isn't in the Ten Commandments. Some have said that the new biblical law should replace prison time, or some of the prison times that's been meted out in our culture, with public floggings. Let's just beat people in public. And members of this group have also celebrated countries who openly execute homosexuals. Now, none of that, I hope you know this, is in the Ten Commandments.
So what is the difference between this group, known as the TheoBros, and the NAR that we spoke of before?
Well, first, in terms of what they believe and what they hope for, there's a lot of overlap. And if you go to some of the gatherings, conventions of people on this end of the religious political spectrum, you're going to find members of both groups there. But this group, the TheoBros, originated more from Calvinist theology than evangelical or Pentecostal theology. This group is far more tech savvy and has access to more money. So much more money. This group is more argumentative and vocally aggressive. The NAR seems to want to hide in the shadows and get done what they want to get done behind the scenes. This group wants to be in the open and believes their time has come. This group we're talking about today is really focused on remaking America and turning it into a theocracy based on their own theology and ideology. But that's their delusion, right? I mean, they don't stand a chance of implementing this, do they? Look, here's what is important for us to know and realize. First of all, Donald Trump is 78 years old, and let's be honest, he isn't a healthy 78. He is a fast food preferring, out of shape, obese 78-year-old man. So probably what we should be doing, while paying attention to Trump and the decisions he makes, is also remember that he's not in good physical shape. And mentally, I think it's clear he's slipping. So more importantly, perhaps, is for us to look at who's behind him. Who's next in line of succession? Who's waiting in the shadows or standing just behind the curtain?
Oh, pay no attention to that man behind the curtain.
As for now, JD Vance is really where we should be paying close attention.
Okay, fair enough. Does he have ties to this group?
Great question. So let's look a little deeper at the people who helped shape the goals and doctrine of this group called the TheoBros. Well, ever wondered where JD Vance came from? I mean, he seems to have had a meteoric rise in the Republican Party and within the hard-right Christian political machine in the U.S. You know how he managed that? Well, some pretty deep pockets bankrolled him and influenced him. And when I say pockets, there really was just one who got him started: Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel bankrolled him and got him further access to the extreme right Christian community and its wealthy tech-based donors. Vance, while in law school, attended a speech given by Thiel. Vance has called that speech the most significant moment in his time in law school. Vance graduated, worked very briefly as a lawyer, and then eventually went to work at a venture capitalist firm that was co-founded by none other than Thiel. So guess who helped him get that job?
Peter Thiel?
Yes, bingo. When Vance ran for Senate in Ohio, guess who contributed $15 million to help him get elected?
Again, Peter Thiel.
Yeah, again, right on the money. And I mean so much money. Why should we pay attention to the fact that Peter Thiel is bankrolling the vice president and the TheoBros? Well, because it's pretty safe to say that if the money ties them together, then their ideology is tied together as well. Thiel isn't bankrolling opposing or differing ideas. Let me say, another leading voice behind the thoughts of this group is Douglas Wilson. Wilson, again, seems to have risen to popularity because of his views, but also his ability to use social media effectively. he lives in, and his ministry is based in Moscow, Idaho. But the church that many of these tech entrepreneurs are joining in California is part of the church denomination that he founded in Idaho. This man is a huge ideological and theological driving force behind the TheoBros. So what does he believe? Well, let's quote two of his works. He co-wrote a piece with Stephen Wilkins. Now, it's not really a book, it's more of a booklet, maybe a pamphlet. And the name of this booklet is Southern Slavery as It Was. In this booklet, they say, and this is a direct quote, slavery produced in the South a genuine affection between the races that we believe we can say has never existed in any nation before the war or since. Yes, I think almost any reputable historian will agree that, well, we've mischaracterized slavery altogether. In truth, it really facilitated a loving and nurturing coexistence that has been covered up by the myth of slavery as an institution of oppression.
In case you missed that at home, that was sarcasm.
It was so much sarcasm.
I know you're fired up at this point, but is there more?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so he also has a book called Fidelity, What It Means to Be a One-Woman Man. Now, before I give you this quote, I should explain some of the language that they use to describe themselves and others. Their theology of men and women is called complementarianism by them. They believe that man and woman are different and have different roles. And if they fulfill these roles accurately and faithfully, they complement each other as God intended.
Oh, that doesn't sound so bad, does it?
Hang on. They see this as diametrically and theologically opposed to what they call egalitarianism, meaning viewing men and women as equal and having equal value and getting to choose their own roles for themselves in life, in relationship, and in the bedroom.
Never mind.
In his books, he speaks of the sexual relationship between a man and a woman. And again, these are his words that he wrote himself. However we try, the sexual act cannot be made into an egalitarian pleasuring party. A man penetrates, conquers, colonizes, plants. A woman receives, surrenders, accepts. This is, of course, offensive to all egalitarians. So our culture has rebelled against the concept of authority and submission in marriage. This means that we have sought to suppress the concept of authority and submission as they relate to the marriage bed. So let's recap. What do they believe? White men in charge. Black people and our culture lived more harmonious lives during the era of slavery. Women are subservient. Women don't need to vote because men are to decide what is best for women and vote accordingly. Well, I could keep going on and giving examples, but I think by this point, my point's been made.
Oh, I pray the point has been made.
One last thing, and I should probably say this clearly. Now's the time for choice. Now's the time to stand up. Now is the time to speak out. If you have a daughter, if you have a niece, if you know of any female in your life who you think it would be great if she were allowed to determine her own path, if you are a woman yourself, then this group should terrify you, and you need to oppose them at every turn. If you think black people, Jews, people of any different race or culture are not a threat to you, but an example of the wonderful diversity in God's creation, then fight against the TheoBros and their beliefs at every turn. If you think executing gay people is not a good thing, then this group we've been talking about should absolutely terrify you. If you'd like to keep the Constitution and not replace it with a theocracy, again, they should terrify you. On the other hand, if you think the government should be taken over by these guys, their vision, so you don't have to make your own decisions anymore, so you don't have to think for yourself, then these guys are absolutely the guys for you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring the bell. And I want to remind you that this video, all that I do on this channel, is a labor of passion. I don't make a dime off these videos. I support this channel. It doesn't support me. So please take the next suggestion seriously. If you got to the end of this and you think getting the word out about this is important, please consider sharing this on social media platform of your choice. And on your spiritual journey, may you ask questions, seek answers, and boldly go wherever the quest takes you.
Thanks for joining us here today and being part of the SkyPilot Faith Quest community. This is a great place to ask questions you wouldn't feel comfortable or safe asking in other places. And remember, the sign of a strong faith, solid religion, or healthy spiritual journey is not certainty, but that you keep asking questions.